Ballet. It's awesome for movement, for strength, skill. The commitment that these people have to ballet is amazing, and it's always been one of my favorite topics. Ballet and Taekwondo seem to mirror each other because, especially in Taekwondo forms, it seems a lot like dance, albeit aggressive dancing. Hello, I'm Jay Armstrong, and welcome to the Movement Pro. I'm here today with Renee. I've only known her for almost my entire life. She's been involved in ballet for all of her life, and we're going to have a little discussion with her about how ballet affects the body, how it will help you move better, and what supplemental type exercises they may do. Good morning, Renee.
Good morning. Hi, how are you doing this morning, Jay?
I am doing terrific. So tell us first how you got involved in ballet. I know your whole family was ballet from birth. Where did you go to school? How did you prepare for your ballet career?
Okay, well, first of all, my mother was a dancer, and she went to New York to train a little bit, and then had a dance studio. And so my sister and I followed in her footsteps and trained with her, and then trained with the earliest Houston Ballet people.
Oh, really?
Yes, Tatiana Simonova. She was from the Paris Opera Ballet that was the first director of the Houston Ballet. And then Nina Popova and Michael Land came in and were the second directors of Houston Ballet. And they were my teachers until I was like 12 or 13 years old.
So this was when you were in grade school?
Right, grade school, which is very important in ballet, what you do when you're young.
Mm-hmm.
So,
are there some special skills that you had to have as a child or an adolescent that would predispose you to being able to do ballet?
Let me put it like this, is when we were auditioned, my sister and I, for the School of American Ballet, Violette Verdi auditioned us and had us go through some parts of ballet class, and then she said, "I want to see your parents." And so she looked at my parents, and I had a father that walked in turnout. And they also were quite small. My father was only 5'8", my mother was 5'2". Mm-hmm. So from looking at my parents, they knew that we would be in the range of body type that would be good for professional ballet. So,
and what is that sort of range of height?
It's good proportions, probably not over 5'6", 5'7". Ideally, there are some women that are taller. Men, you want them to be tall, taller because they lift the women. And flexible joints. Also the hips, like in Taekwondo, you were saying similarities, the hips need to be rotated outward so that you can do the splits and things like that, because turnout is very important in ballet. Also, flexible arches, high-end steps are good, and generally good proportions, long arms and legs. Yeah.
So after childhood, adolescence, and you're a teenager, and then what happened for your ballet training?
Then my brothers have many stories. I had 4 brothers of being left at band practice and baseball practice through all hours of the night because my parents were picking us up from downtown Houston in ballet. So
Your mother was predisposed to prefer the ballet practice over everything else, or?
Well, for the boys, she, the boys were equally involved in activities, but we had to go all the way downtown from Alvin,
Mm-hmm.
back and forth, and that's a long drive.
Right.
And it's even longer now.
How often did you do that? Did you know that?
Every day.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, every day. So my mother was occupied with us in the evening. So
After the teenage years, you went away from
Yes.
Alvin to somewhere.
well, we went to New York City, trained in the School of American Ballet, American Ballet Theater. Then I went to Pennsylvania Ballet and trained, and then I went back to New York. My sister danced with New York City Ballet. I went back to New York and met my first husband, and we danced in several companies around the United States. So.
Well, so after ballet and family, you had a studio where you taught ballet, right?
And then I had a dance studio, yes, for 15 years, and that was interesting.
So what do you think is so good about ballet as a lifestyle, a form of exercise, and something that helps keep you mobile?
Okay, something that maybe people don't know about ballet is that it's a system of movement that was created in the 1600s to help people to move gracefully in all different directions. This was for the court dances. They moved in a circle, and therefore the feet had to turn a certain way. And then the steps, the court dances got more and more intricate. They began to jump up and beat their legs and, show off like that.
So obviously there are a lot of exercises like Taekwondo for the legs and flexibility in the legs and other
Yes.
things. What do you do specifically in ballet for the upper body and the upper spine and the neck? Or
Well, as you know, Jay, the core is attached to the limbs. We cannot move our limbs without using our core. And so, you can't just move your arms by themselves. They don't just...
they're attached to you.
Yeah, they're attached to your back. So we do weightlifting. We do everything. Kettlebells are great. But because in the technique of ballet, the arms extend from the back.
You said that ballet dancers often supplement the dancing with some sort of weights or kettlebells. And of course, Pilates is kind of the official ballet supplemental exercise. So what is Pilates?
Yeah, Pilates is very interesting too, in that it was Joseph Pilates was actually a nurse during World War I believe, and he had wanted to help his patients get better. And when they were in the bed, he would tie ropes or strings or whatever he could to have them
Do something.
develop their muscles, whatever they were lacking. And so the outcome of that was his system of strengthening the core.
And this the central element of Pilates is this reformer.
The
right?
reformer.
And that's so that evolved from working on patients who were in a prone or lying position,
Yes.
supine position.
Which also is great, because when you're in a lying position, when you're lying down, you are in perfect alignment.
Mm-hmm.
So on a Pilates reformer, you can jump or simulate running, pushing off the floor in a perfect alignment. Of course, engaging your core.
So you get some feedback about whether you're lined up or not.
and you're not developing bad
Right.
habits. And you can improve your posture by lying supine and having resistance on other parts of your body. So,
All right, so let's shift over to everything that an athlete does. My favorite example is that of spinning, where you spend hours and hours on a bicycle seated,
spinning, okay.
bending your knees and working your legs.
Repetitive movement?
Yeah, repetitive movement
Okay.
patterns. And, well, while it may be good for your cardiovascular system and it may give you strong legs, there is a price you pay for that.
An overuse.
Well, it can be overuse, but it can also be, well, my knees and hips are always in flexion.
Right.
And then because of that, I lose the ability to put my knees and hips into extension.
Yes.
And I need both of those things.
Yes.
So one of the things that you mentioned, and this is true of Taekwondo, is that we spend a lot of time in external leg rotation so that we can kick high and turn in that direction. Well, the problem with that is ultimately you get better and better at external rotation and you tend to lose internal rotation unless you actively work on maintaining internal rotation. So I've worked with quite a few ballet dancers who actually have a lot of physical problems because they're so externally rotated and they no longer have that internal rotation. So I've given away one of the punchlines, which is external rotation of the hips, but what other adverse effects, if any, do you know of that happen as a result of a lifetime of ballet practice?
Ballet is so vast. There's so many aspects. A professional ballet dancer has to be able to dance millions of ways. Turned in, turned out, rounded spine, erect spine, and all of those things in the same dance. Because ballet, the word ballet encompasses all dance. So different ballet companies, I don't believe that there's very many companies at all that only do classical tutu ballets. No. Contemporary modern dance is always incorporated in that. So, with that said, and even when I was dancing, you had to be able to do jazz and tap, and all kinds of things were used in the choreography. So turn in, you have to practice. And I have a very good turnout naturally, and turn in was very difficult for me.
But you worked on that.
But you have to work on it,
right.
Yeah. And yes, the turnout muscles, the piriformis, and all the QL and the lower back muscles do get overworked, and they have to be stretched a lot. But it's always important to do counter movements for whatever moving.
So what
you're doing.
about feet, knees? These are a problem in Taekwondo as well. We're kicking boards, we're jumping and landing and taking a lot of impact on the knees. So what are the adverse effects on knees and feet of being a lifetime ballet practitioner?
Well, ballet, I believe more than any other sport that's taught, especially because sport, you have the somebody might hit you and you might fall backwards, or you might run and hit a bump in the grass or whatever, and you'll fall down. Okay, so that's sport, those kinds of sport. But ballet, more than any kind of sport, or trains every muscle in the body from the very beginning. That's why it's important that you start from when you're young. You start standing in a yoga perfect posture. We used to have to stand 32 counts in a yoga perfect posture with our legs turned out, pulling up the muscles and rotating those muscles, and then going on to the next position for 32 counts to strengthen the muscles before you take off and do a turn. Also, like I said, alignment is correct, knee is important, and if taught correctly, you learn how to track your knees, track your... So in those ways, also, there's ways that you strengthen your ankles and develop your feet that make it less likely that you're going to sprain your ankle,
Right.
or turn your ankle, or twist your knee.
So alignment of the knee and the ankle and the foot is something that you work on in ballet to protect you all the way down the road.
From the very beginning, if you're whether you're doing a plie, it's just bending the knees in parallel, or with the toes pointing straight forward, or turned out, or whatever position your feet are in. And there are some very unnatural positions that we do, so that puts stress on the hips and the knees. But we practice the tracking.
What is the long-term effect of ballet practice with all the extreme range of motion in the hip socket? What is the effect on the hip joints? Do you know how people who have been in ballet for their whole life, how they have aged and how their hips have held up?
I think that, like I said in the beginning, is some people, as lucky as and heroic as they are, principal ballerinas, principal dancers, they dance a lot.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yes, they move their bodies a lot. They turn out a lot. So yes, there are people that have hip replacements and knee replacements after their careers and things like that. It would be very difficult to have a career with a knee replacement.
Yeah,
there may be people that have. I'm not sure. The body wears out.
Right.
I don't think I worked hard enough to have that happen. But I guess because I don't have those kinds of problems. I do have arthritis.
Yeah, I developed some knee issues, but I'm not sure that I didn't have... Well, no, there's no question. I didn't have the understanding then that I have now of what it meant to stabilize the knee. That was probably the primary thing, is that I was kicking really hard, but I wasn't doing it with the knee stabilized. And there were probably some alignment issues between the foot and the ankle and the knee that put additional stresses on the knee that were unnecessary and long term. That was bad for me.
Fifth or sixth exercise at the bar, they can be done in different orders, but the fifth or sixth exercise at the bar, so you can see the first 4 exercises are taught right away, but the rest are taught as you develop some strength. Is called frappe, and it means to...
I thought that was a coffee drink.
Yeah. It is, but it's a throwing of the leg. It's so you learn just how to use that knee and it's done very fast.
But it's to full range of motion.
To the full range of motion, but you learn how to stop that leg. I mean, from when you're 8 years old, you learn to do it fast and not to throw the knee.
And hyperextend.
Not to hyperextend, right.
Yes. There's a taekwondo move that we do, which is a low block, even though a punch is a lot like that. But the low block is very...
Yes.
It's very prone to hyperextend this elbow. So you have to learn that Well, that's not what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to break my elbow. So I have to find a way to get here and terminate that extension motion, but still complete it.
Yes.
So it's there's a specific skill of tensing the antagonistic muscles, in this case the bicep, to prevent that from the tricep from ripping your arm off.
Right. So we start practicing it very slowly, and then it gets faster and faster. Frappe is a very intriguing exercise. So we'll have to do something on frappe and kicks and things like that.
Sounds like a wonderful plan. Yeah, I forgot to ask, where did you dance? I know you danced for a while with the American Ballet Theater. Is that in Boston?
No, that's in New York City, but I just trained there. I did not dance
okay.
with the American
So-
Ballet Theater. The main place that I danced was the Chicago City Ballet under the direction of Maria Tallchief. And
How long were you in Chicago? Because obviously I'm spending time there.
yes, I know, about 3 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wanted to look at kind of how we've morphed from, obviously, I'm not competing in Taekwondo tournaments anymore. You're not on the stage dancing anymore.
Okay.
So you know that what I'm doing here at the Movement Pro is trying to help athletes, average people, and more mature people move better, be pain-free, and have a better lifestyle than they did before I shared what I know with them. So is this the sort of thing that you are doing now, and how are you doing that?
I love this sort of thing, and I think when I really started thinking about it more was when I took some time off from dance. Of course, I exercised and did different things, but I took time off from ballet, and then I came back to it about 10 years ago. And the body doesn't work the same at my age now as it did, 30, 40 years ago. It just doesn't work the same. And so the idea for me was, well, how can I do this more efficiently? How can I actually achieve my goal? And we're talking strength. We're also talking stretch too, but stretch seems to be easier to get for me than strength. But we're talking all these things, how the muscles trigger now. Sometimes they just don't do what I tell them to.
Do you find recovery is different now too?
Recovery is different. I am so thrilled when I get sore. I don't get sore.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not able. It's possible that I'm. Is it possible that I'm not able to push myself far enough to get sore? I'm not sure, but I used to get sore at least once a week, and now that's not the case.
Right.
But I appreciate getting sore because I know I'm developing new muscle, when I'm getting sore.
Yeah. My observation of soreness is that either I have to do something quite extraordinary. So if, say, kettlebell swings, if I'm doing, in a regular workout, I'll do 200 or 300 kettlebell swings.
Okay.
So in order to get sore from kettlebell swings, I would have to do 1,000 or more, or I'd have to use extremely heavy weights. It would have to be really quite extraordinary.
Okay.
Or it has to be a movement pattern that I haven't practiced for a long time.
Okay.
So say I didn't do rows, heavy rows for a long time, which I do some with kettlebells, but I don't do them with dumbbells or rows with a barbell. If I were to do a bunch of rows in a particular workout, then I might have some soreness because I haven't used that particular movement pattern for a long period of time.
Yeah. Do you remember being sore when you were younger?
Oh,
more
sure.
Often? Because
Sure.
I felt like I was sore a lot all the time.
Yeah, I told my
when I was
students
young, yeah.
very often in here that it's pretty rare that I get sore. Now, is that because I'm not pushing? I don't think that's true. I think that I don't do stupid things. No, really, this is a big deal. This is why the movement pro's here. Because what I've learned over time is that if you're working on presses, so the methodology that I used when I was in my 20s and 30s was I would start with, say, a 20-pound dumbbell, and I'd do 5 or 10 presses on each side. Then I'd go get a 30-pound dumbbell, and I'd do 5 or 10 presses, and then I'd get a 40-pound dumbbell. And this was the normal workout. The end point was where I couldn't do it anymore.
Okay.
And so I pre-fatigued the muscles, and then I worked to failure. And when I went to failure, I was at my maximum load. Now, as I learned from Pavel, and this just was one of those duh moments, like why didn't I think of that, is what I did was every workout I trained to fail.
Okay.
I practiced failing.
Okay.
Every workout. I didn't stop until I failed. Now, you can say, well, that's just pushing it. No, it's a little bit different. It's not being smart, because when I reached the end of the line, I had the heaviest weight that I could manage, but I actually couldn't manage it. So I put myself at risk for doing these presses when I was already fatigued. The muscles weren't, the joints were not stabilized as they should be, and now I'm trying to do something that I can't do. So I was always on the verge of getting hurt, always.
That is such an interesting concept. So, how do you do it differently to...
Yeah, so let's say my maximum press is 70 pounds.
Okay.
Well, then I'll go to the gym. I might do something else to warm up the muscles. Generally, I'll take a 30-pound weight, and I'll do a couple of presses just to make sure I don't have something surprising that's going to hurt me. Oh, I've got a tweaked neck or something, or a pain in my back. If I do, then I'm not going to do presses today. Why would I do this motion with a heavy load if my neck or my back are hurting? Let's save that for days when I'm not in pain.
Okay.
First thing, don't do stupid things that hurt you. The second is, okay, I've done a couple of reps with a 30, skip all that other stuff. If today's a heavy day, then I'll grab the 70 and do 1 or 2 reps. But I'm going to succeed.
Okay, each rep.
You must succeed. And if you put it down, you go, yeah, I could do that again, then do another 1 or 2 reps. But always succeed. Generally, I try to stay at, if say 70 or 80 is my maximum, I'm not going to do much work with a 70 or 80 for 2 reasons. One is I can't do much work with a 70 or 80 because it's my maximum load. So I'm going to do 1 or 2, and then I'm going to be done. So instead of working at my maximum, I'm going to work below that at a 50 or 60. And then I can do reasonable work. So I can do 5 with a 50 or 60, and then I can rest and do 5 with a 50 or 60. And all of the repetitions are quality reps. They put a stress on the muscular system, the bones, and the neurological system. But I'm not at risk of hurting myself. And then periodically, you must play with heavy weights if you want to. If your goals are strength gains, then you must play with heavy weights on occasion. So the big difference in that discussion and what I did when I was in my 20s, my goal then was to get bigger muscles and look buff and have the chicks. That was the most important thing. So the most important thing was muscle hypertrophy. Get bigger muscles.
Okay.
Now the goal is to have increased strength. That's the goal. In fact, my general view is people have been chasing this how do I look thing.
Right.
And they get themselves into big trouble
Right.
because they are superficially trying to do things that make them look a certain way.
Right.
And what's important to me now is, how do I move? What can I do? So let's say I want to be able to do 20 pull-ups. That means my strength to body weight has to be a certain ratio. That's a pretty good feat to do 20 pull-ups. And when I reach that level where I can do 20 pull-ups, I will have a certain look, but that's a byproduct of learning how to do 20 pull-ups. So the objective is, what can I do? As we mentioned, I have a couple of young kids. So what's important to me is not how do I look for the young kids. The question is, what can I do with the young kids? Can I swim with them? Can I climb with them? Can I play ball with them? Can I roll around on the ground with them? That's the important thing. And if you can do and you do, then I think you'll have a certain look about you. So, back to you.
Wonderful. Because when I first started training in ballet with Tatiana Simonova, we had no mirrors in the studio.
Oh, really?
We had to face the wall. She was a very old Russian style teacher. But we had to face the wall and look at one spot. Sometimes she would draw a little spot because you could tell what we were, looking around. And so basically you had to feel everything. If she came by and corrected you, you don't turn and look at that body part because it's going to change your posture.
Right.
And so I liken that to yoga, and some yogis don't like me to because they think of dance as being, the performing part of the art. How do I look, am I beautiful, instead of how it feels.
Yeah, more internal.
To me, it's an internal thing, and you learn how to use the mirror to correct yourself, but it's not especially to go, you have to. It has to feel right. When you're on stage, there are no mirrors.
Right.
You have to learn where to spot, where to focus, without
So
any mirrors.
that's a point that I'd like to touch on. When you turn around, and they do that a lot in ballet, I found that more mature people have a lot of problems with turning, even slightly turning, because of the decline in their visual and vestibular systems, because they've never turned.
Right.
And so when they come in here, one of the things that we do in my classes is we turn and we roll around on the ground, and that challenges the visual and vestibular system. But ballet dancers and figure skaters are some of the very best at turning. So what are some of the secrets for getting better at turning?
Doing it.
Practice.
Doing it. We just don't. I used to say, all right, let's turn our heads from side to side, and this is my senior classes. Let's turn our heads from side to side so you can back up the car.
That's a good reason.
Now we don't have to do that anymore because we have a video.
Cameras.
We don't even have to turn our heads.
Right.
But yes, and especially with turning, it's the inner ear, the balance, and for balance, it's the inner ear. So you have to practice. As you practice, it will get better. But with turning, if I just turn once a week, it takes me longer to, I would have to repeat the turns more times to feel secure, to feel balanced as I turn. Because as we get older, our inner ear does, part of it is biological, and it has to get used to it. It has to develop a sense of balance and a sense of turn.
Right. So with the clients that you're working with now, what do you do primarily?
Well, we start from where they are. I work with an older.
Not
group.
necessarily ballet people.
Right. I'm fortunate that most of my clients have exercised most of their lives, but they've come to a point where they've either been injured or something or ill, and they have to stop for a while, and
right.
so they have,
Recovering athletes.
recover.
But currently you're going to the place where the clients
Yes.
are, so you're kind of an on-call
Yeah.
movement coach.
Right.
Do you bring kettlebells or a reformer with you? Or
No, I don't bring a reformer with me. I sort of, yesterday I was feeling a little bit maybe like Joseph Pilates, tying bands around chairs and things to get this movement going for one of my clients.
So you're a fan of bands?
I use bands a lot. I use balls.
Swiss balls or
or
like tennis balls or something like that?
$2 balls kid balls that you buy.
Yeah. Well, what do you do with those?
We squeeze them. We do lots of
Connected movement patterns.
and it helps to stabilize the shoulder.
Yeah, you can't see them, but that closet over there is filled with balls.
Cool.
So we do
Yeah.
a lot of that for how to apply forces to the limbs that require postural stabilization in a
Right.
wider variety of ways.
Wonderful,
Because this
yeah.
is, well, I won't give away my view if you haven't seen all my videos. So what do you think is the most important thing for improving the health and mobility and longevity of people?
To get off the couch. Seriously. And if you can't get off the couch, then move on the couch. I have worked with people in their bed. And to move, if you can't move your legs, move your arms. If you can't move your arms, move your finger. You have to move, and you will improve.
I just finished a book that was recommended to me by my friend Dr. Rakowski. It's called Move Your DNA by Kathy Bowden, I think. And the gist of this book is that, to what you're saying, that you must move, and there are a lot of books about this, but this particular one is a little bit less about you'll be healthy because your joints and stuff. It talks about how all of the tissues in our body sort of function the way they do in response to movement. So when I do this, I squeeze the cells in this arm. And I also squeeze the veins which pump the blood. And when I bend over, I do a lot of stuff to the internal organs.
Yeah.
And all of those things affect us in a very profound way that change the length of the cells, the muscle cells, change the ability to contract muscles, change the blood flow. And although I don't recall she mentioned this, it is factual that the entire lymphatic system, which exists to get rid of byproducts and waste that comes out of the cell walls, that whole lymphatic system is similar to the circulatory system that's pumped by the heart, except there's no pump. So the reason that these fluids are moved around in your body is in response to muscular contraction and movement, which is why people who are bedridden for a long period of time, they start developing fluid that collects in different parts of their body. These are lymphatic fluids, then there's nothing moving them to where they're supposed to be. So if you're in bed nowadays, if you're in a hospital bed for any length of time, they're going to come and put some sort of cuffs on your
Circulatory
legs
things.
that are going to
Right.
squeeze your legs,
Yes.
not just to pump the blood back to the heart, but also to move the lymphatic system.
Right, right,
So it's extremely important to move.
right, right.
Now, do you have any particular movement patterns that you've found are deficient in the populace that it could, because you see they're on the couch?
Well, gravity, gravity is always pulling us downward. And so, our posture is going forward and down. So a lot of problems are caused by that, neck, back, and it affects the whole system.
What do
like
you do
said.
for corrective exercises for that?
We're not born perfectly symmetrical.
Uh-huh.
So as we age, that symmetry, that asymmetry becomes more and more prominent as gravity pulls us down. So those are the things. That's a very big thing that I start with.
So you look for asymmetries and try to work on balancing them?
Somewhat, yes, somewhat. And then as we go on, more and more. But the main thing is to pull yourself away from gravity, make yourself large again. It changes your whole biochemistry and makes you feel more powerful. And exercise, like when I do my workout, I say, oh, if I can do this, then washing the dishes and doing my errands is not so hard.
Yeah, life is hard. If you train hard, life will seem a lot easier.
A lot easier, yeah.
And so what would you like us to do together, if anything? We talked about doing a workshop. What do you think we could do that would help people improve the way that they move more? One of my big goals is to help people move pain-free. And so where would you like to head with that?
So I think a feet workshop would be very good. Something about the articulation of the muscles in the feet. Plantar fasciitis is so
Prevalent, yeah.
prevalent and so painful. So I think
Why do you think it's so prevalent and so commonplace?
people don't even think about their feet. Even people who exercise, even people who run, they don't pay attention to the muscles in their feet and taking care of their feet.
I remember one of the early years when I was teaching Taekwondo, and we were in a class and we were on the floor stretching. And I noticed that the people in the class had, long toenails, dirty feet,
Yeah, that's true.
And they're all barefoot in the same same studio with me. And I'm going, this is just gross. So I gave them a lecture. I said, your feet are a part of your body.
They carry your whole weight all day, every day.
So I expect you to get down there to your feet, cut your toenails, clean your toes, wash your feet, and treat them like they're a body part that you care for and you respect. And people don't. They don't. Not only do they view their feet as some foreign object that's attached to the end of a stump, but they also feel like it's out of reach. They don't
Yeah,
work
for some
to
reason.
get down there.
It's too far away.
It's too far away, yeah. And this is part of a movement skill set
Yes.
that we certainly need. You should be able to get to your feet.
Yes, and I think a lot of times, in a lot of different classes that I've been in, of many kinds, athletic classes, whatever, the teacher will never mention what the feet are supposed to be doing on the end of the legs. I like to be specific. On this exercise, I want you to flex. And
Right.
if you flex, I want you to flex to your full extent. I don't want you to just kind of,
Right.
like a fish on the end of a...
We certainly get some of that in Taekwondo, because if you're going to kick with the bottom of your
Yes.
foot, or you're going to kick with the top of the
Well,
foot.
that's
you're
your
gonna kick with
weapon,
the
isn't
side
it?
of the foot.
That's
you
the
have
blade.
You have to have some concept of where you're pointing your feet so that you strike with the correct part of it.
Yeah.
But I guess my concern is that feet are not glamorous and they're not exciting. So
In ballet, they are.
would people be
Ballet makes feet glamorous.
would people be interested in a workshop about feet when they really don't care about their feet at all?
Well, I think they should be. Okay.
Well, we'll
here's-
just tell them that.
Yeah, we'll just.
should be.
Well, I think it's important that they, that attention is brought to that. We need to use our feet are important. They take the pressure of our running. We need to strengthen the muscles in our feet, the muscles and bones, and use them. I'm working with one of my clients has broken both ankles several years ago, and so in recovery, she stopped using the bottoms of her feet to push to
Right.
walk. She also did some different things with her hips, but so that's a learning process of learning to articulate the feet muscles to help her propel herself forward. And-
Well, the feet are connected physically to the ankle, the knee, the hip. That's all on one side of the body.
yeah,
So there's a lot of force that goes through the knee
Yeah.
and the hip. Then it crosses through the glutes, across the spine, and over to the opposite arm.
and let's
down
talk
this
about
arm.
into the brain.
And into the brain, yeah. So changing the way your feet work can very quickly reduce pressure on the knee, the hip, the spine, the neck, the shoulder. In addition, it can have additional effects that you don't expect, like you said, for
Cognitive development and yeah.
so there are a lot of reasons why this foot thing is important. Maybe we put together a workshop.
Yeah,
on this.
I think that sounds good.
Thanks for coming to play with me.
Okay. Thank you. It was so interesting.